So welcome everybody. I'll keep an eye on the door if somebody knocks there. So
Yeah,
well,
Rikus will be a couple of minutes late because he sits in traffic.
okay, no, that's fine. So perhaps to start off, welcome to everybody. But I think perhaps some important discussions we had in the um, working group. And morning, Tannie Renata.
Môre, sorry ek is laat. Jammer almal.
That's fine. Is I think Stephen made a very important or a very practical suggestion, is that if we have worked through the Comensa behavioral standards, that we take some of those and actually say how does it actually play out in our daily engagement with clients, to make it more practical, to say literally how we're going to apply those. And then the second suggestion that we'll bring into future sessions is one that Andre made, was to say that he has got a good feeling that a lot of planners actually would most probably fit better into the behavioral standards of mentoring, due to the fact that one come from a background of knowledge, advice, and just a different approach, which is not a coaching approach that the client does all the work, but putting some knowledge out there as the wise mentor, and then going into a coaching approach. And Comensa, as we know, is have got a behavioral standards, or houses both mentoring and coaching. So that could be of value for people that feel, I don't want to go totally into this only coaching methodology, but I also sometimes want to go into a mentoring methodology. So I think that was the two big takeouts from that session, or from our working committee. I don't know, Andre, Renata, anything that I left out that you thought that was important that we need to share with the rest of the group?
Can't think of anything now.
Okay, so what is interesting for me when I worked through the behavioral standards, last time we spent, the last session we spent, and it's due to the holiday, etc., it is 2 months ago, we actually spent time creating opportunities for own and personal growth. And what we discussed was things like, we need to adapt to the speed of the client. So for the client to be able to grow, we need to be able to adapt to where the client are in terms of their growth process. Although we are specialists in terms of finances, and perhaps great at finances, not being judgmental at the gaps that we see in terms of the growth of the client as such, and how do we continuously adapt to that process. And where is the client then in this journey process? Because I think Mary J made a remark that in terms of the process, is sometimes clients can actually, their biggest need is to be able to learn how to save and manage their budget. And they're totally not ready to start talking about investments, estate planning, etc. And how do we adapt to that and actually stay with a coaching process that is of benefit to the client, because it is the client's agenda that we follow. Where then we move into this month, and Andra, I'm going to ask you to just give us a background then, although I shared it in the mail that I sent out, but today we're talking about maintaining a coaching presence, where you know, which for me integrates very nicely with the previous discussion we actually had. So if you can share a little bit your view in terms of maintaining a coaching practice, and how does it play out for us as coaches?
You mean a coaching presence?
Yeah.
Okay. It's basically demonstrating sufficient self-awareness to have a realistic perception of your own strengths, your own weaknesses. And it's also about clearing your mind prior to a session from all your own clutter, your own agenda, your own things that may influence the session, where some people sit in a session or would come to a session and they're thinking of other things, so they're not really present. And I think that's very crucial, especially in coaching, where if you're really present, you pick up so much more from the client that they might not even tell you. You'll actually feel what they're feeling. And it's becoming aware of your own emotions, your own thoughts, your own feelings, and to be able to actually manage that and maintain a neutral and non-judgmental way of being. So I think also the minute you start not being present, you can easily go into the judgmental side, where you start judging the client sitting in front of you, even by not saying it, but just by thoughts and things like that. So it's really about the coach remaining neutral while you listen to the different points that the client might bring without judgment, and also being flexible in your coaching style to adapt to the requirements and the needs of the client at that moment in that session. And not saying, okay, well, you know, we have a certain structure and you stick to that, and the client throws you a curveball and then you get stuck. So being present is really to also be flexible, dancing in the moment with that client. That's a little bit of a, very short version.
Thanks for that, Andre. So, as you were listening to Andre, and for those of you that looked at the standard as such, what is some of the things that came up for you and you thought, you know, how does it apply to our world of coaching? And then secondly, most probably, the whole exercise we're busy with is to say, you know, if we think from a financial advisor and a financial coaching perspective, what is lacking in this standard? Is there anything that we can add to this standard? So what were some of those thoughts that perhaps went through your mind and that you thought of perhaps could apply to this specific standard? Whoever wants to say something, Tannie Renata, you're more than welcome.
Tannie Renata, en ek probeer so hard met al die goeters, man. You know, I would say, coming from the financial, let's call it the financial advisor space, that is exactly the stepping in from the advice space. And to be so mindful of being there to hear the client, as opposed to listening once again from a I can answer you space rather than a I can hear you space. I think that's always the dance that we're having to do, as Andre called it, you know, that dance we have to do, where we have to be so mindful that when we are in this coaching presence and when we are listening, is to listen from a hearing space, as opposed to a I can solve your problem and I can give you the answer space. So that's what always comes up for me. And I think that's more just a presence of mind space and more an experience thing as you walk this path, because, you know, it's so drilled into you from a financial, you know, financial planner, financial advisor space of a, here's the books, here's the answers, this is how you solve the problems, from a coaching space. And I suppose that's where you would straddle the coaching mentoring space to a certain extent. But I think it's just, again, being mindful of the, I've got the answers versus I've got the safe space. If that makes any sense. I think that's what comes up for me, is when you are in that dance, as Andre called it, because it really is that dance. That's it.
Welcome, Mary J. You hand it over to your nanny and your kids are fine, so you can join us now and totally be present around the topic. So welcome. Anybody else want to add to what Renata said that came up for you? As I was perhaps just while you are thinking about the topic, when I was doing ACC at Center for Coaching, Belinda Davies, the previous chair of Comensa, was with me in the group, and it was way back many years ago, and she was we coached each other as part of the journey, and in one of the sessions she said, "You're the most difficult person that I ever coached, because we were talking about a topic the last time and I was coaching you on a topic, and when we meet again, you've got totally something different that I need to coach you on." And I think when I was working through that's a beautiful example of, we think the client is going to walk into our office, we prepared for X, Y, Z to discuss with the client, but the client is in a total different space. Life happened, or had a discussion with the spouse, or had a discussion with the partner, and they're in a total different space. And how do we then adapt to meet them in that space where they are? Because I've then done all this work, I've prepared, and now you come with something totally different, and I need to deal with it. And it does happen in our world. And yeah, so that was something that I thought about as an example of being this. What do we do in that instance? Do we just go on and battle ram with what we've got, or do we adjust and say, okay, let's start here. What actually happened here? Why does my client continuously change? Is it that the client is self-coaching, or is it that the client is actually just running away from what we are doing and bringing something new just to distract me? So how do we stay with those conversations and be curious to understand what's going on and beneath that?
If I
Yes,
can
Mary J.
raise my hand, what stood out for me and what you just said there was the preparation that we do as coach before the session. And what are we preparing for? Because preparing for coaching is very different to preparing for financial planning. Preparing for financial planning, we got to get our ducks in a row, we got to have all sorts of data and information and answers. Preparing for coaching is a very different experience. So perhaps that's also a distinction. What are we doing in that 15 minutes before we're going to meet with our clients? Because that sets the tone for our own energy and expectations in terms of what we imagining they're going to be bringing for us.
Thanks. I think that is great. Dion, you normally have got some wisdom to share with us.
Yeah, it's just I'm busy at the moment. I'm trying to find my feet on how I want to apply this in my practice. So the thing is with financial planning, you need a lot of information from the client, but you don't necessarily want to talk about all the detail of the finances in the meeting. You actually want to talk to the client about the client and what is important to them. And yeah, so I mean, if you speak to Sharon, when she met me, I'm super analytical. So it's all about the details. And I sometimes drive my wife crazy because I always want to give a lot of detail because detail is important to me, and she always just wants the bottom line. And what I've realized is a lot of clients, the finance is important. It has to support the plan, but it's not important to the client. It's not what they want to speak about. So I can, if you guys like, I can quickly share something with you.
I'm just quickly going to give you permission. By all means,
Okay.
There you are, Dion. You can go ahead.
Okay, let me quickly just show you.
Welcome, Dr. Bill. We're discussing maintaining a coaching presence currently. Welcome to our coffee table.
I'm humbled, and I thank you for the privilege. Till what time does the webinar continue?
Until 9.
Okay, please, I need to pull out about 10 to 9 for my next appointment, but I'm excited to be here. Hello, everybody.
Thanks.
Hello, Bill.
Hi, Will. So yeah, so this is just something that I've plotted myself. What I would like the whole financial life, or I call it my life plan program, what it must look like. So I'm still developing it, but a lot of stuff that I want to do is I mean, Major was talking about all the preparing for financial planning meeting versus a coaching meeting. And there are a lot of concepts that I feel we explain over and over and over to clients. So what I'm busy doing at the moment, I've started creating videos to explain certain contents, like for example, so the whole idea is there's a chemistry meeting and then there's the important to you meeting. I'll quickly share what I'm busy with. I won't take up too much time. And then there's videos between the meetings, almost like reflection or homework that you usually give to clients with coaching. Let's say, for example, there's a 2.5 minute video to explain inflation, but in simple terms, so that when I meet with them with the possibility meeting, they already understand how real is inflation, how important is it to consider. So I'm trying to, between the meetings, trying to give the detail through, so in the meetings, I could just listen to the client. Another thing that and this is something that I've actually, I drove Sharon crazy when she did her financial coaching course. The whole time I said to her, where are we going to get the time? Where we need the information? How are we going to get the information? Who's going to pay for our time? So what I've done is I've actually started developing technology to see whether I can get most of the information from the client. So I've actually developed a software which I call Simplify My Life. And the whole idea is that clients must give information via our portal. And I can quickly show you. So there's certain things that we've built in. For example, there's a dashboard that the client lands on with their financial information. They can actually do the budget online. They can give us our assets and liabilities. We can upload their policy information, their pension fund information, all of that. So the whole idea is I'm not going to, so the whole idea is to just want to stop this share. There we go. So my whole idea is I want to see whether I can do a lot of the, how can I put it, the detail work, not in the sessions, but outside the sessions. Get the information from the client, almost like sort of their homework. We can then process it, and eventually we can pull all that information in after we really understand who the client is, what their needs are, where we're going with them. There's also a thing that I've developed, which I call the life wheel. It's actually something that Sharon shared with me. So in the program, we actually do an exercise where we understand what are the things that are important to the client and what is the current satisfaction rate. And then we need to know the things that we need to focus on. So I'm trying to figure this thing out for myself. How can I sort of take care of the detail, but not during the session with the client, so we can actually discuss, I can actually listen to the client and I don't have to worry about the detail. Fine. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Dion. And the Steve Connolly and them in the UK is what they did was they call themselves this intermediated financial coaches or planners, which they don't do any product implementation. But what they did, what I see from what you're doing, Dion, is they've got an app which is Happy Nav. They're using technology, and the client actually run their own financial plan, and they just focus on the coaching and the coaching conversation. And then if we bring that back then to our topic, maintaining a coaching presence, you can be totally present with whatever is concerning the client at that point in time. So yeah, any other thoughts there? Because perhaps a last thought that came up for me while you were talking, and that's now a distinction from ontological coaching perspective, is to say, on the one level, clients can change things by looking at process and systems and numbers. And then the second level, which is changing the way of being, is looking at what is the conversations the client is having, what is the language the client is using, what is the mood of the client, which is the coaching conversations. And a lot of time we move, which Renata said, we move to that level of, let's look at the numbers and I tell you how to do your budget, etc., and then everything will be fine, where actually we must work on, what is the stories you bring to the conversation? What is the conversations you're having with yourself? What is the conversations you're having with your spouse? What is the conversations you're having with your kids? And how does that impact your budget? Rather spending time there where my view is your system is then nearly taking that layer of numbers and figures, and you can spend time on the conversations and changing the way of being of the client. So yeah, perhaps just a side thought from myself.
Yeah, just another thing. Yesterday I met with a guy. He's an engineer and he specializes in solar solutions. And he gave me a presentation for our buildings where our offices are. And he spent such a lot of time on the detail, and I had no idea what he was talking about. In the end of the day, I just want him to give me a solution and tell me what it's going to cost me. And I think the same with when you go to a dentist. If the guy wants to do a root canal, he's not going to take an hour to explain to you how to do a root canal. He's going to do the root canal. And I think that is what I'm trying to do is the planning in the plan itself that I can give to the client after understand their need. But that was actually such a small part of the whole conversation. The client must feel safe with me. They must know I understand their need, and they must know I've implemented the best solution for them. For me to take hours to explain to him what I've done, it's almost like not worth it. Because I mean, a lot of us that are in financial planning, a lot of times you explain something to a client, a month later, you think to yourself, when you speak to them again, did this guy listen to any word I was saying? So the whole thing is they don't get the detail, but they get, it's like the one person that said, he can't remember what the guy said to him, but he can remember how the guy made him feel. And if clients can feel safe, and if they know they are listened to, and they know we understand what they need, then they don't have to be worried or bothered about the plan. They know the plan will be good. I hope that helps.
Very Jay.
All right, this was something to say. So two things pop to mind. The first one is part of coaching presence is what does the client want to know? So instead of us deciding they need to know less or more, what of everything that there is are they interested in most at that moment to help them feel empowered so that they can take whatever step it is they want to take. And then how could we co-create with them and do the planning with them? Because I also think that's such a powerful shift we can make as planners in bringing a coaching approach is instead of, I mean, I love your idea of shifting the details to the side and so you have more space to focus on them in terms of the relationship and the coaching. But what if you also brought in the details they need and worked with them on it versus still presenting something to them at the end? Because I find that's where a lot of them are disconnecting. Not that they don't understand, but that they're excluded from the process and they don't own it. Whereas if you bring them into whatever part or wherever they're at, and what it has meant for us in our practice is that we don't do a proper CFP plan from A to Z, where we're covering everything. We often starting with a tiny little piece, and over time we may get to all the other pieces. I've shared about a client of ours that we've been working with for over a year now, where it took us 7 months to get to the investment piece. It took us 10 months to get to the insurance piece. But we're here now 13 months later, and the client is investing, the client is taking out income protection and all the things they need, but the client's doing it. And they asked for it, and they're owning it, and they're even working through and sharing with us the emotions. So they took a long time to do the paperwork for the insurance. And when we inquired, they expressed that they were anxious about the cost. And we could have that conversation about the barrier because we'd spend so much time, and because they were involved and they were owning the process, like they wanted it enough to go, why am I putting off this paperwork? So just some thoughts. What do they need and how can we include them in the process?
Can I come in there?
Yes, anytime.
So
Cindy.
I mean, I'm also working with Sharon, and she's changing my entire paradigm shift. I feel like I'm changing more than anybody at this stage. I'm changing. I don't know if I'm changing the clients that much, but I'm changing so much. So I'm currently working, and this is just something that Mary J brought up. I am co-creating with quite a new client at the moment. It's been a very long process, and there is no money. We've discussed fees up front, but I have not billed them, and it is being quite a lengthy process because the husband's very analytical and the wife doesn't really know what's going on. So, but what I'm telling myself is we're building relationship, we're building trust. They're feeling safe. You know, I keep checking in with them. How's the process going for you? What's working? What isn't? And I'm trying to be very sensitive to where they are at. What is your need? This is a famous Sharon statement to me. What do you need from me to enable you to take the next step? But to come back to what Dion was saying, it is taking a long time. And how do we get paid for that? But I'm trusting the process that next year we will see some fruits there.
Hendrik, may I?
Yeah, anytime. Well,
when I first read the invite for this particular group, I became very interested, and my field of expertise is neuroscience. And I would love to be able to offer this group and work together with this group for you to look at the possibility of including the amazingness of understanding that your clients are not personality-based. By definition, neuroscience defines a human being as a psycho-neurobiology. Psycho means you've got ego and personality. That's the drama. That's the dance. That's what comes on stage to impress you. So I've been working with salespeople and training sales managers to be neuro sales managers and salespeople to be neuro sales executives, where you pay attention not only to the psycho, but to the neurology. Now, the neurology contains, so your brain is not your mind, and your mind is not your brain. Your brain is controlled by your mind. And inside your mind is things like 13 brain intelligences, 8 brain languages. So if you put up an Excel document for me, the brain reads that in a fuzzy way. So the moment you put up an Excel document with 10 columns and 14 lines, the brain reads that as fuzzy, but I am more visually orientated. So what you would need to do as a financial planner for me is to take me on a blank piece of paper, bottom left to top right, and draw little symbols and diagrams on a timeline to show me visually as where I'm headed. Your biology also has 7 logical levels, which include values, beliefs, meaning, identity, movement, and momentum. If you don't understand the human biology and work with the human, because they are already on the journey, the reason why they phoned you, they are already on a journey because their mind has switched stuff on already about financial planning. Their values are switched on, their meaning are switched on, their identity is switched on, the journey is switched on. They have got a second level of values. So when you bought your car, you didn't buy a car because you had a need. You bought a car because it was valuable to you. What was valuable about me buying my car? I had to sell it during COVID so that I could make capital. And I got, when I shared that information on Facebook, I got 11 thumbs up from my 5,000 friends. En ek het die F-woord gehoor in my kop, frikkie. And so I bought my car because of economy. I bought my car because of family value. I bought my car because of reliability. I bought my car because of there's a service plan. But a second set of values, the moment you sign the deal with your client, there's a second set of values that switch on, which is called my service values. So my financial planner is messing up totally with me. When I told him up front, listen, I'm investing money with you, and here's how I want you to treat me. I want you to send me an email at least once every 3 months. Just keep me updated about how my account is going. I'm not interested about the market. Don't tell me about the market. I couldn't care about the market. Ek's bly jou ma sê jy slim omdat jy oor die mark dink. So ek is very happy for that, for you, but not for me. So don't come and tell me about the market, wara, wara, wara. I want to know what's happening in my portfolio. Is it going up, down, sideways in the world? Where's it going? Don't just contact me on my birthday and anniversary. That's an insult. And stop sending me those stupid emails that say, dear valued customer, my name is Bill. God calls me Bill, so you better call me Bill. So there are logical levels. I would be willing to be able to give you a 30, 40-minute presentation on it so that you can just get a feel of what's different. The people that are using neuroscience as a methodology of selling with people have shifted from rapport to connection, because the human mind, the conscious mind, already has connection built into it. We are connected to everything and everyone. So the moment you feel disconnected, it's actually an illusion, because it's impossible to be disconnected. Your mind has connection in it. And it's because of the mirror neuron. So when we understand it, when we're talking with people, the first thing we need to help them discover is, so what are your brain languages, so I can do my presentation to you in your preferred brain language, so that you get connection, not rapport, so that you get connection, not communication, because the human brain wants to connect with meaning and understanding. Words to the conscious mind are only a rumor. They have to be unpacked. That's why you have the feeling of, he's giving me all these details and I just want to, excuse me, tell me what's the bottom line so that I can buy the bloody product. Just tell me that. So that's because there's a mismatch in between the person who's presenting and the person who is listening. The person who's presenting is totally oblivious and unaware of my profile. So, and the biology has got to do with I do have emotions, but my emotions are first interpreted in my biology as an energy. So there's a surge of energy that takes place. Where do you feel it when you're stressed? In your mouth, behind your shoulders, in the back, your head, your temple, palms sweaty. That's the signal of the emotion called stress. You get that first before the emotion rocks up. So we've got to learn to read the kinesthetics of our body. So the neurology is the conscious mind in action, the levels of thinking, the brain languages, the logical levels, and they are, so if you could think your brain is your hard drive, the mind is the DOS program. Personality is Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Excel, which I hate, by the way. That's personality and ego. So Hannes, I hope, Hendrik, I hope that in sharing this little bit of information with you, I've whet the appetite, because I really desire to add value to this group and for you to become super successful in how you, so presence as a coach is when I understand who am I coaching. I'm not coaching a person just with personality. I'm not just focusing on the psychology. There's a new kid on the block called neuroscience. It's been around since 1996. So you can sell far more effectively. You can understand the journey. You can understand the beliefs that sabotage the contract. You'll understand the internal conflicts, the mind state. The mind state before you have a consultation with them. And once the mind state is there, that becomes the trampoline on which your whole presentation bounces. And the moment you have that dance with them, the moment you have the connection with them, the moment you have the mirror neuron connection, you shift from communication to connection with the conscious mind. So Hendrik, I hope I'm taking the liberty to share now, because I need to go in 5 minutes, but I hope somehow I could whet the appetite and add value to your group, because I think it's essential that financial planners understand you are planning beyond personality. Here endeth my lesson.
Thanks, Amal, for that. Like always, your energy is just on the next level and always exciting to engage with you. So I think while you're making the offer, next month we're actually talking about diversity, which I think everything that you actually said fits in that. Although we think about diversity, about cultures, etc., but that is embodied in ourselves and forms part of those beliefs, loyalty, values, etc. So I think, you know, if it's fine with you, I just had a look. I think it's the 16th of September is the next session. Then you can actually come and share that, and then we can integrate it, because I think that will be very practical if that's fine with you, Bill.
Yeah, that'll be most helpful. I will, and thank you for the invitation. I'm humbled, and I really appreciate that. So it will be a general presentation on neuroscience, almost like neuroscience coaching, using the 9 behavioral standard framework. So I with your permission, I don't just want to focus on the one behavioral standard framework called diversity, but would like to just interrupt your program to go, just let's have a look at that, because I would like to then invite you to consider joining a master group, which is almost like it's a course. So it's a coaching course. I will then coach everybody who wants to join onto the masterclass step by step on a 25-day cycle for about 11 steps on how you coach into neuroscience from a financial planning perspective or a selling perspective.
That's 100%. Well, I'm comfortable, and I take the liberty. Renata, Mary J, you can also come in as part of the working committee. I don't want to do this by my own, but I think that will be very helpful and add value to us all. I don't know the rest of the group online. Are you comfortable with that, Andre? Absolutely. I think Bill has got 2 minutes before he needs to drop off. Any questions perhaps for him or comments from your side?
I would just like to reiterate, it will simply be a presentation
Yeah.
for you to consider. And then after that, we can go offline and then discuss the possibilities of the masterclass, which would mean an investment.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. Thanks for that, Bill. If I can then, a thought that came up while Mary J was speaking and linking to Dion, and that's the co-planning part. I think that's a great tool, especially with online coaching, is if one can, and I know a lot of you on the call actually use Wealth Integrator, and I think Wealth Integrator makes that possible, and actually most software makes it possible, but I think Wealth Integrator is brilliant for that, to actually do the co-planning with your client, so that your client can actually, and I think there's more than one value of doing co-planning and doing it with your client, because your client can actually start seeing what is the impact of their decisions. Because I think that's the one challenge with financial planning or even financial coaching is, I haven't been there, so I can't imagine what is the impact. I don't see the impact of the R1,000 a month that I'm saving now, or I don't see the impact of buying the bigger car or buying the bigger house. I'm seeing I can afford it now from my salary. However, I'm not seeing the impact. I'm not going to be financially free by age 52. And now all of a sudden buying this house, I'm actually going only be able to be financial free at age 60. So by doing that co-planning, and there was actually research done in the early 90s by a person called Dr. Lazenby, which he called scenario selling at that point in time, where they actually found the switch that happens with clients by and getting them involved. Because, and I think also, and that's where George Kinder's work talking about lighting the torch, and also to what Bill was saying, is if you can understand the values of the client and what is important for the client and get them to buy into that picture. But then with the co-planning, I think you take it to another level by getting the client actually involved and seeing emotionally what is the impact. You know, a lot of clients, when they just go on the retirement, they think that it's the most money they ever had in their lives. I can give to family, friends, kids, etc. This money will not get to an end. However, the impact is, if I'm going to still live another 35, 40 years, what is the impact of that? But that whole process, back to presencing, I think can help to keep the client present and engaged into the process. And then to Bill's point, there's some clients you'll go into the table, some clients you'll keep on the graph, other clients, depending on the personality or of what the clients prefer in terms of the presentation style and their learning style, you can then adapt your process of co-creating those plans. That was some of the thoughts that went through my mind when you were speaking, Mary J, as well as to Dion's framework, is how do we make it practical and integrate all of this into our world. Any other thoughts? Susan, you were very quiet up to this point.
No, I think what Bill had to say was just fascinating, and I would love to be able to learn that extra part of coaching. I've actually only just recently been introduced to the Wealth Integrator because I haven't been using Old Mutual, and wow, it's just incredible. So I think that tool is, I'm actually having a training later this afternoon, so I'm really excited about that. And Dion, I think what you're doing there is absolutely brilliant. I hope that you're going to be selling that so that we can buy into your beautiful software there, because I was like, I so want that.
June, you wanted to say something and then I
Yes,
really interrupted you.
No, not at all. Sorry, I've been quiet as well. Maybe just, I think what came up for me while everyone was talking and kind of just circling back to coaching presence, it kind of just reiterated for me again that we need the awareness that you have to have. I mean, we are a human being and we enter a meeting as a human being with all the stuff happening, around us. And for me, it's always just checking in with myself and this is just, again, made me aware of it, is what do I need to do to actually be present in this moment, being present with this meeting with the next client, because that's ultimately going to cause me to stop listening or listen well, to pick up on things. And then maybe, being part of integrated wealth planning, I'm also a financial planning coach. I mean, I'm Sharon's colleague. And once you've unpacked what's important to a client and you're now on a journey in terms of, what this client is wanting to achieve. So when you mentioned the person coaching you and you were different, like every time you were kind of presenting different scenarios that they need to coach. For me, once you've created and a plan for this client and it was built on their values and what's important to them, it's always, for me, then easier to bring it back to whatever problem you're presenting. How does that impact on where you want to go? Because, is this still important? Is it something that we need to revisit? So for me, it's about just picking up on that and making sure that what they have, built together with you, co-created, that's still applicable. And how would this new presenting issue actually impact on that? But for me, it's just, then again, that awareness of having a coaching presence, which, love that. That's me.
Thanks, June. Rikus, Piet, thoughts that came through your minds?
Yeah, this was quite interesting, and I liked what Dion did there. What came through to me when I started off, I was a financial planner, and you do financial plans, and then you become to realize that in order for a client to buy into financial plan, you first have to understand his life plan. When we become life planners, and then we discovered that in order to do life planning, you must understand why a client is making certain decisions. And that's why we embarked on this behavioral coaching side. So it's stepping stones. But you must always remember your client has got a certain perception of what you're trying to create. He either sees you as a financial planner or a life planner or whatever, and you must unpack, first of all, what is his perceptions of where the conversation is going. And then while doing the coaching, you come across that there's certain knowledge that the client lacks. For Dion's example, where the way the tax works can be influencing his decisions, not necessarily his mental state, but a simple knowledge of why you are taking certain decisions. And having those type of videos that Dion talks about, where you pick up something like that and you can send him a video and say, have a look at that in the meantime. But then the next session that you've got with him, that is taken care of, and he's on the same page as you are. And you can concentrate on the elephant in the room for some clients. So, yeah, the whole package. Actually, this conversation today was very interesting for me.
Thanks, Piet.
Yeah, I think from my side, I also just want to tag on maybe on the detail versus the co-creating. If you go through the Wealth Integrator and those who aren't using it, please look into it. It's really the best planning tool for me that I've seen out there. Some of the other planning tools is just basically the output is just figures. It's not visual for a client. If you are able to show the client, listen, this is your life journey, and if we do certain things that'll change the outcome for you, then they become part of the process, and they see, well, listen, if I sell that house, or I do this, or I just change my lifestyle, it brings the picture home to them. And that's where you can really sit with your client and they see that you invested as much as they are, because they know we sit with plenty of clients and are creating plans and changing the outcome for a lot of people. They realize you taking this time sitting with them and helping them to plan their future. So yeah, in between the detail that you need to show the client, and as Piet mentioned, tax, and it affects a lot of things in their plan. Simple things that one can change. Downgrading a medical aid plan, thinking about things differently, smaller car versus bigger car. Things that clients never thought of. It's interesting bringing the neuroscience side of things into it. It's sitting in a meeting, it's tough when you have to sit with a client, you have to explain to them all these difficult concepts, and then you also still have to be present and listen to them, to their needs. So I often still grapple with this, but it's a journey, and loving every moment of it now. So from my side.
Thanks, Rikus. Warwick, you were hiding the whole time with your camera off. Any thoughts there from your side?
Yeah, I'm always hiding it. Yeah, I think obviously informative, and I think there's so many different moving parts that end up forming this whole process that we're going through. And I think that the more information we get to try and fit it in with what we're wanting to do at the end of the day, the better it actually makes the journey for the client ultimately. I know a lot of people have mentioned there the Old Mutual IWP thing. And I've embarked on that for the last 4 years. I've been using it, and only now, obviously, coupling in the coaching side, you really get a better understanding, and the client has more of an impact on what their plan is. They feel like they're more involved in it. They can make tweaks and see an automatic change in what they're doing. So it's a really, really valuable tool, and I think it has a lot more. I think the planning and the coaching side is really the framework. The meat actually comes where the client can see what the end results are, and I think that's exciting, and it's exciting moving forward. I think there's a lot more things to come out of this, and obviously bringing in the neuroscience part of it makes it even more interesting. Although it does make my prefrontal cortex ache a bit, but anyway, we'll leave it as that. Sorry, my camera is funny because I've got load shedding here, so I'm trying to run as lean as possible.
No, that's fine. Marguerite, your reflective personality, what have you got to say to us listening to everything?
I think we live in the best of times. We are, we've got all these methodologies and disciplines and information available to us. And as Piet also said, it's a constant process of evolution for ourselves as advisors, planners, coaches, to integrate this stuff first in our own lives and then to share it with our clients. So I think we're in a very privileged position to be here, to be sharing this information and to learn from each other.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. For those of you that's not most probable, that's on the call and it's not mutual supporters and is looking for something else that's similar to Wealth Integrator, I only discovered them recently, WealthBit, and it's quite brilliant in terms of exactly doing lifetime planning. And what they've got great is they've got a client portal, so the client can actually capture and be in control of their financial plan to a certain extent. The detail is lying on your side as a financial planner, but the other part is lying on the other side. And then to what Dion is doing, and I'm currently exploring that, so I haven't got the final answer. I went down a rabbit hole and I'm trying to get myself out of the rabbit hole, is there's quite a few coaching platforms out there. Currently, the ones that I looked at, the better ones is Coach Advantage, Coach Up, Delenta, and Simply Coach. But however, Simply Coach, what is nice, to your point, what you want to do, Dion, is you can actually create coaching journeys. So what then happens is it integrates your appointment making process. You can drop the videos and stuff that you've got into the process between sessions. You can put those coaching questionnaires into the process. So if you onboard a client, it actually automates that journey for you with clients. And to Cindy's point also, you know, a lot of these things is, I think it's how can you scale it, you know, and well, that's what I'm playing with, is to say, how can you use such a process perhaps to do some of the work for you in between sessions. And you can also, you can give input, because a lot of it is then actually you're taking yourself out of the process and that the client do a lot of the work where you can automate the process. So yeah, so just I thought throw it in there, something what you know, if you want to go and explore, go and look there. Thank you very much for everybody's participation. Final word from you, Andre. You just observed today.
Yes, we had all the clever people talking today. But I also thought it was quite interesting, and yeah, I think everyone's really getting the idea of this whole concept of financial coaching. So I'm very impressed, and I love the inputs everyone is giving, and we can see the diversity amongst everyone as well. Like Dion said, he's a very detailed person. Other people say, show me the money, or show me the bottom line, or whatever. So yeah, I think it's also adapting to our own style when we go into a session, and not be rigid in only saying it's like this and this, and be very clinical. So I'm enjoying this. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre, for your time also that you put aside for us. Much appreciated. And thank you very much. And then we see each other again next month. So all of the best for your businesses. And yeah, Dion, nice play. You keep on playing nice with that, what you're doing there. It's great. So thank you very much. All of the best. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye now.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
See the rest of you now on the other side.